February 2022, a BNSF conductor is sitting in a conference room with his union representative. He is trying to explain something that should not require explanation. His wife spent 10 months fighting brain cancer, and he used every single day he had to be with her, every vacation day, every personal day, every FMLA hour the federal government says he is entitled to. Now she is gone, and he wants to see a counselor because his mind is not right. The railroad is telling him that under their new attendance policy, he would have already been terminated. His daughter was just diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and he cannot help her either because he has no points left in a system that treats attendance like a video game score that only goes down. And that is where American freight railroads are in 2026. The system this man was trapped under is called Hi-Viz, and it showed up at BNSF Railway on February 1st, 2022, with all the warmth of a collections notice. The way it works is this. You start your railroad career with 30 points. Every time you cannot make it to work, those points are deducted, and the amount depends on when you miss, and why the railroad thinks that day matters more than your life does. Take a Friday off because you are sick, and that costs you 4 points. Miss a Saturday because your kid is in the hospital, and that is 4 more. Call in on Christmas or Thanksgiving or the Super Bowl, and suddenly, you are down 7 points because BNSF has decided those are high-impact days. If you happen to be unavailable during what they call a critical operations period, you can lose anywhere from 10 to 25 points in a single absence. Now, here is where it gets truly brutal. The only way to earn points back is to be available for work 14 days in a row. When you complete that 2-week stretch of absolute availability, you get 4 points restored. That means if you took 1 Saturday off for a funeral, you now need to work 3.5 months of perfect attendance just to break even. If you run out of points entirely, the railroad puts you through a disciplinary process that ends with you losing your job. And maybe you are thinking, there must be some exception for medical situations, some way to show a doctor's note and have the absence excused. If that is what you are thinking, then you do not understand how this industry operates, because BNSF made it crystal clear from day one that a doctor's note does not matter, that documentation of illness does not matter, that the only thing that matters is whether you showed up when they called you. They can call you with 90 minutes notice at any hour of any day, because these workers do not have schedules in any sense that a normal person would recognize. A conductor named Courtney Goodson, who works out of Gillette, Wyoming, put it as plainly as anyone could when she told a reporter that there are weeks when she does not see her 3 children for more than 10 or 15 minutes because of what she called a brutal policy. You need to understand that she is not on a regular shift. She is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When that call comes, she has an hour and a half to get to the yard and climb aboard a train that might keep her away from home for anywhere from 12 to 60 hours, depending on where she is going and how long she sits in a hotel waiting for a return assignment. The federal judge who ruled on this policy was Mark Pittman. He sided with BNSF to prevent the unions from striking. In his decision, he wrote that the Hi-Viz attendance standard is harsh, and he still ruled in the company's favor. That is how the Railway Labor Act works in this country. Railroads have been considered essential infrastructure since the 1920s, so workers are not allowed to walk off the job over anything the courts consider a minor dispute. Apparently, losing your career because your wife had cancer counts as minor. Within weeks of Hi-Viz going into effect, more than 700 BNSF employees resigned. When the railroad tried to recall furloughed workers on the Red River Division to fill the gaps, 70% of them refused to come back. Some of those people, with 20 years of seniority, walked away from their pensions rather than live under a system that turned their lives into a scorecard they had no control over. A retired BNSF worker named Jeff Kurtz, whose family has worked on the railroad since 1937, said it exactly right. He told a reporter that Hi-Viz basically turns your life into a scorecard, and you have no say whatsoever what that scorecard is going to look like. And while all this was happening at BNSF, the entire freight rail industry was heading toward a national crisis because workers at all the major carriers were negotiating new contracts. The single biggest issue on the table was something that most Americans get automatically at any decent job: paid sick days. The railroads were refusing to include even 1 day of paid sick leave in any contract offer because they claimed it would interfere with their ability to staff trains reliably, which is an interesting argument to make when your attendance policies are causing hundreds of experienced workers to quit every month. By September 2022, a tentative agreement was reached with the help of the Biden administration. It included raises of 24% and bonuses worth thousands of dollars, but it did not include a single paid sick day. When the unions put that deal to a vote, 4 of the 12 unions representing more than half of the 115,000 affected workers rejected it outright because they understood that a raise does not help you when you are forced to choose between going to work with a fever or losing your job. The strike deadline was set for December, and everyone knew what a shutdown would mean. $2 billion a day in economic damage, chemical shipments halted, grain rotting in silos, car factories going dark, the entire holiday supply chain grinding to a stop. So President Biden went to Congress and asked them to impose the contract without sick days. The House had passed a version that would have given workers 7 paid sick days. The Senate voted 52 to 43 in favor of that same provision. But because it needed 60 votes to overcome a filibuster, it failed. On December 2, 2022, the president signed a law that forced 115,000 railroad workers to accept a contract they had voted against, while explicitly denying them the right to stay home when they were sick. Biden said at the signing that he knew the bill did not have the paid sick leave that rail workers, and frankly every worker in America, deserves. But that was the deal. The message received by workers across the industry was simple: shut up and get back to work. Labor historians were not quiet about it either. More than 500 of them signed an open letter condemning what the administration had done. What made it sting even worse was that the day before Biden signed that bill into law, Canada granted all its railroad workers 10 paid sick days per year. You could look across the border and see what valuing workers actually looks like when a government chooses to do it. After the public relations disaster of forcing a contract down workers' throats, the railroads began making individual deals with unions to provide some sick time. By mid-2023, most workers at most carriers had arrangements that gave them around 7 sick days through a combination of new paid days and the ability to convert personal leave. BNSF even reached a deal with its locomotive engineers that included 5 paid sick days and more predictable scheduling. If you stop the story there, it would sound like progress. But the attendance policies remain in place at most railroads. Workers at BNSF say they still fear using sick time because taking a day off still costs them points even when they technically have the hours available. The fundamental structure of the industry has not changed. You are still on call around the clock. You still get 90 minutes notice. You still spend days in hotels waiting for assignments. You still have to make choices that no worker in any other industry would recognize as normal. A union president named Dennis Pierce said it plainly. Workers are still forced to choose between working sick while handling some of the most dangerous cargo in transportation, or protecting their points. That is where the American freight rail industry sits in 2026.